I think one thing to need to first, probably I need to add a little bit sidetrack from the question, is that needed to really understand that why is because everybody knows that one of the key elements of the competitiveness of the Chinese player bring is the cost. So the reason is why really the cost is so low. The competitiveness of Chinese player in the past 4 years have been making huge increase, like making stride quite significantly. The reason, in my eyes, is first is the Chinese renewable manufacturing, their experience and their capacity or capability of in terms of assembly equipments and their automation of making. They're able to manufacturing product and assembling product in a relatively cost efficient way. And the second is that the capital injection into a small and young hydrogen and electrolyzer market, that of course it was driven initially by policy incentive because the government are really driven to promote new energy sectors like battery, etc. But a lot is also because of the already powerful wind turbine, solar, battery company. They have the capital, they have the profit runway to support a smaller, but in their eyes, more promising sector like electrolyzer, and that's allowed the capital to get into the Chinese market. And then on the same time, a key important is that the Chinese market had a very cheap renewable cost, and that as we talk about LCOH, that means cheap and the world's biggest renewable capacity, and then it's still expanding renewable market that allow this Chinese company to have a chance to get a market share in whatever circumstances outside. And then the large scale of renewable translated to a large scale of power to X demand, and therefore giving way to electrolyzer. But another point that people often miss, I think, is that they're not miss. It's not top of their head. Is that the large spectrum of industrialization, the industries that can utilize green hydrogen from green in like green steel. So today we're talking about mostly about coal, chemical, and chemical, etc. But there is a lot more application for green hydrogen in China, at least in the Chinese industry. This also allows the Chinese electrolyzer maker to be able to design their product with a differentiation, teaming with this type of new industry application. So they all get into the competitiveness of the Chinese company. In terms of what exactly, of course, the most obvious one is price, as I already mentioned, 73% in price reduction in alkaline product and 60% for PEM. To just give given that we're a data company and we're a data-driven company, we like to give some data. So currently, the price point for the lowest, what we know about the alkaline unit for 5 megawatt is $770,000 per unit, which we're talking about a 5 megawatt unit. That was actually just July this year. And then in the past August, in a tender initiated by Sinopec and China Coal for their new green hydrogen project, there is the lowest price of $350,000 per unit for the same 5 megawatt unit, which is but that's without the purification and the gas separation. But still, that in 2 months, that the price change is quite shocking. But that is not only in alkaline, and PEM is the same fashion. And I believe that for PEM in China, it can go even faster because it used to be the PEM, the component in China. It is a lot of international sourcing. So the space for price reduction is limited. But right now, given that there are a lot more local production, localization of key membrane, etc., so the price reduction can be even further. So price is a clear element for impacting the global competitiveness. Doesn't mean that those price will translate to international price, but it's a benchmark for how international company would need be compared to. And then the continued price drop, I think, is the scary part. Due to that, the amount of overcapacity and over planning of electrolyzer capacity in China, it is not only in alkaline and it's also now extending to PEM. So don't expect that this is only a story about alkaline or the cheapest product, etc. So this will continue is because there are just a lot of demand, and then the company need to really compete for their life in China, so that this will continue. And then on the second element is the technology. Of course, you mentioned, and because company needed to compete, need to survive, they not only need to provide the best price, but they also need to differentiate themselves. That's why we see the huge investment getting into AEM, and that actually offer a very interesting opportunity for a lot of European material company and catalyst company to trying to find opportunity in the AEM space. And oftentimes is currently, in my eyes, there is something not being discussed. It's SOEC. It's really the iceberg currently. You don't hear a lot of things going on, but we know that there are players and companies actively investing in China. And then it's just about time that it will be at the same moment for SOEC in China, that of like all of a sudden everybody launch like 10 or 20 new products in 1 month. So that will change the benchmark of what is the technology choices. A lot of the news, the technology exploration in China is to how to combine a electrolyzer system, combining PEM and alkaline, that is to better serve a certain type of renewable portfolio. And also whether Chinese companies prefer like singular and individual electrolyzers versus probably the more common, the European market prefer modular electrolyzer. Which one will be preferred in the global market, that remain to be same. But there are all these technology will differences in China and the world. I think it will gradually have an impacting on the global trajectory. And in terms of market access, I think that's the most difficult part, the limited part of the Chinese player currently accessing or impacting the global landscape. This is because of, obviously, we know that there are regulation constraints for the Chinese supplier, and also that it's not, we're talking about 300, 100, whatever Chinese player, but in the end, it's just a game for a limited amount of Chinese player who can go abroad, because that going abroad for Chinese company not only require, they are wanted to or offering the cheapest, but they also need to have the capacity to, they need to understand the market. They need to have the capability to do the after sales, establishing and connecting with that. But of course, we already see Chinese company doing that since 2023 by either teaming up with some of the larger player, either by teaming up with the European player, or trying to do technology transfer to European player, which is very new to me. But that's the direction to be. And so I think that's a little bit of the different elements of the Chinese company. How did they change in the global landscape?